Bella Act and EWC seem to have been pretty heavily covered in the media, right? But something that really didn't receive a lot of exposure, which you pointed out in this report, is a recent study by the United States, which was released in August. So the US State Department's Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor found that the human rights situation in South Africa has significantly deteriorated. And I'm not sure what your media coverage was like at the time, but for me as a consumer, I hardly saw any information about this. And in fact, the only thing that I saw about it was actually in foreign media. I think it was US media, nothing in South Africa. And so I wanted to know, Ernst, if for the viewers, you could just elaborate on this study, because this is a crucial piece of information that we've all been missing out on.
Right. So that's once again, it just shows the major problems we have in mainstream media in South Africa is that it has selective reporting. So, I mean, there is something called lie by omission, where you just don't cover a story and that's as good as a lie. And this report that the State Department published earlier this year was a incredibly important report because it made some very damning findings, and I'm not surprised that many media outlets didn't cover it in South Africa, because it kind of shatters the ANC's narrative. Now, it's open for everyone to go read. It's not a report behind a paywall or where only some people have access. You can either go to AfriForum's report and find it in the bibliography, or you can just, I think, if you search a US State Department South Africa report, you'll find it. It really is highlighting the issues that AfriForum and Solidarity and many other organizations and individuals have been pointing out. The Kill the Boer chant and incitement of violence against minority groups in South Africa, racially discriminatory policies by the South African government, threats, intimidation and threats and police investigations into government critics and those who dare to criticize or expose the South African government. It points to the economic freedom fighters and correctly identifies them as a radical extremist left-wing party in South Africa that is not being condemned by the ANC when they chant kill the Boer, kill the farmer. And the overall conclusion of the report was that the human rights situation in South Africa has significantly deteriorated, not just specifically for Afrikaners or white South Africans. In general, the situation has deteriorated. But it mentions issues like farm murders being one of the major issues that have contributed to this conclusion being reached. So that's one of the main sources that I thought was very important to include in our report, for exactly the same reason that you pointed out there, that it didn't get a lot of coverage in South Africa, because it's a report filled with hate facts. It's a report filled with just politically inconvenient information. And that seems to be swept under the rug these days in South Africa. While AfriForum's approach to this is let's speak the truth about South Africa and the South African government, the good and the bad, not just the good, or not just that information that is convenient for the current narrative coming from the ANC. And we saw that as well now with G20, where when Solidarity put up their banner a few weeks ago, the banner that correctly states an objective fact that South Africa is the most race-regulated country in the world, with over 145 race-based laws. There is another country in the world with that many race-based laws, as far as I'm aware. I've not been pointed to one. But then what was the government's response? Well, a government who has facts on their side would simply have responded with the facts, saying, well, here's the reality, here's the counterpoint that South Africa is not the most race regulated. Actually, it's a non-racial country. That would have been a calm response from the government, but that's not what they did. The government rushed out and illegally tore down Solidarity's banner, and then Solidarity went to court and won the court case, demonstrating that the government acted illegally in their censorship. But also it didn't work, because then the Streisand effect kicked in. Not only did Solidarity put up 38 new banners and posters all across the South Africa, particularly in Gauteng, but also the photograph of the banner that was torn down went viral on X and on social media. It was covered on YouTube and Facebook and everywhere. Whereas maybe a few 10,000 people would have driven by it and seen it and internalized or taken in what they were reading on the banner. Now, 500,000 on this post, 400,000 on that post, 300,000 on that post. Millions of people around the world then saw this banner and got it a lot more exposure than it would have gotten if the ANC had just reacted in a calm way, but they can't, because they know that AfriForum and Solidarity are speaking the truth. If a government that knows it has truth on its side doesn't have to resort to censorship, I think that's just a clear lesson we see all around the world and throughout history.